Good afternoon. Welcome to this Q&A session with Carlos Ghosn. We're going to go straight into Q&A. Mr. Ghosn, thank you for joining us today. Let's go to the first question. Jamie?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this. Are you confident that the alliance will remain stable and drama-free through this annual meeting season?
Annual meeting season?
Shareholder meeting, annual general meeting.
Oh yeah.
This spring and all.
Oh yeah.
No troubles with Renault-NIssan.
But by definition, a surprise is a surprise. But I'll tell you that I don't think so. I don't think you should waste your time trying to understand what's going on. No, I don't think. I think it's a stable agreement. It's behind us, and it's going to remain like this for a while.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Mike Spector, Wall Street Journal. In emerging markets, Mexico, India, and other places that don't have laws or regulations that mandate standard safety equipment such as airbags, what is the obligation of your companies to make that equipment standard, notwithstanding the lack of the requirement?
Well, that's a good question. Well, you know, we think as a company that what's acceptable and what's not acceptable at all levels, in terms of safety, in terms of emissions, at all levels, is up to the regulator to define. There is a debate today, as you know very well, in Europe about NOx emissions. Okay, there is a debate about NOx emission. Every company can come and say, you know, I'm going to go to this level. Other can going to say, I'm going to go to that level. What's the right level? Who can define what's the right level? Well, in fact, states are here to define what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. You know, how much is too much, and what is the level where all the industry need to comply. And I think it's very important, not only for existing technology, but even for future technology, that states take leadership to say, okay, that's acceptable, that's not acceptable. We have the problem today on cybersecurity. You know, we're going to develop a lot of technology, connected cars. You know, what's the level of safety that you need to introduce here? What's acceptable, what's not acceptable? Well, we obviously need as an industry to help, but at the same time we need a regulator to decide. Because only the regulator, only the state is in a position to make it acceptable for the public. Because if not, if every car maker say, you know, that's acceptable, that's not acceptable, the public is confused. So in country where there is no position from the regulator, it becomes extremely difficult. It becomes extremely difficult. And I think what we're doing here is asking, whenever in this country there are holes into the regulation, asking for the regulator to fill the hole. I mean, we've been one of the proponents, as all the industry, for example, when the NOx story started on Euro 6 in Europe, to say, let's put some rules on what we call real driving emission. Because there was a perception that the existing rules did not translate the real driving emission. So let's put a rule. It's very difficult for car makers to do that. It would be much more credible for government to do it. That's what I can tell you. That means it's not up to us to decide what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. I think in every market where we are, the state is supposed to take this position. And we don't try to second guess. We obviously try to influence, but at the second time, we cannot substitute to say that's acceptable, that's not acceptable. It's up to the regulator to say that.
Thank you. Next question.
Robert Wright, the Financial Times. At this auto show, we're seeing quite a lot of green vehicles being introduced, but people are also introducing some really large, quite fuel-hungry SUVs like the Lincoln Navigator. There seems to be a tension between what US regulations require and what consumers actually want. Do you think there needs to be further action about that? How do you as a group respond to that?
No, it's normal. You know what, consumers want something, and we have to follow what consumers want. At the same time, we have to respect regulation, and you're going to always have tension between both. And it's our duty a little bit to marry what consumers want from one side and from the other side, what the regulators is mandating. Obviously, the regulator is not mandating something out of the blue. They usually discuss with us, with the industry. Obviously, the industry doesn't have always common position on this because there is a competitive game. We are more promoting electric cars. Some other people are promoting fuel cells. Others say, no, hybrid are necessary. Third, clean diesel. I mean, it's normal. But the fact that there is a contradiction between what are the trends of the consumer from one side and what the regulator would like to see, it's not something which is surprising. It's part of our industry, always has been part of the industry. It's up to us through technology and through creativity to try to marry both. Today, there is a big trend globally for more crossovers. Crossovers are, developing everywhere, in China, in Europe, in the United States. At the same time, we know that the restriction on emission are become tougher. They are, but on top of this, wait until COP21 conclusion, which is no more than 2 degrees warming for the planet, be translated into specific objective by activity, energy, agriculture, transportation, and you're going to see that the restrictions on us are going to become bigger. We think that it's going to be very difficult to do without a lot of zero-emission cars. That's what we think. Other car makers have different opinions. But again, we're going to be waiting until, again, the regulators and the states take their position before we act.
Paul, we've actually just been practicing, so this is the first official question.
Thank you. So as we look forward, there are a couple trends you touched on a bit that seem to be running counter to what the scientists would like. We're seeing a lot more big utes and a lot more performance. 600 horsepower is normal now for many manufacturers, where 300 used to be wild.
Yeah.
Do you see these trends going away?
No.
Or
No.
How does it play out? If you look out 10 years from now, what are we seeing in terms of performance cars, in terms of the average vehicle on the road, which is now becoming a ute in the US and even globally?
Look, if we're being extremely factual and rational, what's important about emission is what the 85 million cars sold every year emit. Not one of them, not 1,000, not 100,000, the 85 million. If you want to be even further, you should say what is important is how much the 800 million cars driven every day on the planet emit. That's what's important, okay? So if you go to the basic objective, say, okay, I want to limit CO2 emissions, let's go to the car park and say, I'm start with the car park and then try to make decisions. So I don't think that, the fact that car makers are having some 600 horsepower, 500 horsepower cars is going to make any big difference. Because frankly, we show you the GTR, which is a great car, okay? We sell 2,500 GTR a year, okay? 2,500 GTR a year. So the 2,500 GTR a year within a total sale of 5.5 million, it's an insignificant part of our sales and the total emissions. It's not so much that some GTR are having a high level of emission, which is going to matter. It's how much the average 5.5 million cars or the average probably 50 million car park that we have. I mean, that's what's going to make the difference. And so we should, that's why when we started electric car, we didn't say we're going to come with the 100,000 electric cars, because that's not going to make a big difference. We'll go for mass marketing. That's what's going to make the difference. You have to go to mass marketing, and we're going to continue to go to mass marketing. And that's why we say the second step is not coming with a premium $80,000, $100,000 electric car, is going for the cheap, low-cost electric car that we want to introduce in China and India. That's what's going to make the difference. Because here we're talking about millions of cars, and here you're going to be a real transformation of the industry. So my point to come back, that means these few examples which are more object of passion and motivation and emotion and are more the flagship of the brand, that's not what is going to really make the difference in terms of emission when you take the total picture.
Will you electrify the GTR as some would?
Oh, that's not our priority. Oh, frankly, that by far.
And do you see sports cars increasingly going to electric?
That will. I mean, we are in Formula One, electric Formula One. We're promoting this. We believe in this, and we are preparing for this. But if you tell me what is your priority, if you're really serious about fighting emissions, you should go for the mass market. I mean, electrifying a few high-end cars, what's the difference going to take for emissions? You know, you should look at the 800 million car park. You should look at the 85 million cars sold every year and say how much of those are going to be really, really efficient. So we should go for the numbers.
John? Oh, I'm sorry. Christy, let's do
Whoever
you.
has the microphone can
Yes,
go.
Christy
yeah?
first and then John. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Ghosn, I was wondering if you could discuss plans for further electrified vehicles within the Nissan and also the Infiniti lineups. At one time, there was a plan for an EV, an Infiniti EV, and that's been not discussed lately. So I was wondering if you could update us on what's to come.
Well, again, we said we give a priority to the mass market. That's why we started with the Leaf, with Zoe, with Kangoo, with ENV 200. It doesn't mean that one day we're not going to go upper, but frankly, we are concentrating today into lowering the cost, increasing the autonomy, and massifying a little bit what we have, working on the assets that we have. Well, it's likely that you're going to see, because particularly with the trend of crossovers becoming much more popular, it would be logical that one day you're going to have a crossover, which is electrified. So we're going to go step by step. Not so much to showcase the technology, but to be effective in terms of emission. That's why we're going to go after the volumes.
I just wanted to follow up on that. Your competitor, Toyota, has said they're going to have a hybrid version of virtually every vehicle in their lineup in the U.S. in the 2020s. Would you expect the same, or electrified version of a Nissan? Would you expect the same?
Yeah, we are going to have a different technology and a different approach, and we're going to obviously meet whatever regulation will be put into the United States. But particularly, our main leverage is going to be electric cars. It doesn't mean we'll not have hybrids or plug-in hybrids. We'll have that. But our main driver is going to be mass marketing electric cars.
Go to John.
John Volker, High Gear Media. Following up on that, actually, after 6 years, what has Nissan learned about the process of building, marketing, and actually selling electric vehicles around the world?
What did we learn? Everything. We never done it before. We never done it before. That means this is the first tentative to mass market electric cars. We're the first one to start it. We started with the Leaf. You know, at the beginning, a lot of people thought that the car will not be a real car, that there may be quality problem around the battery, then about the motor, etc. Nothing happened. I think everybody recognized the fact that the electric car, on a technical point of view, has been a big success. There are cars which are reliable, very high level of satisfaction. We probably underestimate the reluctance of consumer to jump into electric car due to lack of infrastructure, because we're seeing this mainly as being a main obstacle for people finally making the decision. And also the fact that the costs need to go down. That means the car needs to be much more competitive than what it is today. This one we were suspecting, but now we have a real picture. That's what we have learned. And another thing we have learned is, you know, every time you bring a technology, even with the support of the government, like in China, which is too expensive, people don't buy it. I mean, even with all the incentive that the Chinese authorities are putting on electric car, they're not buying expensive electric cars. They're not selling. So what is selling in China is very cheap, even with a very primary, I would say, performance electric car. That's what's selling. So we just need to adapt to the market and go for that and say, okay, let's accept maybe a more simple level of performance with a much lower cost, because this is probably the way we're going to end up mass marketing electric cars.
Just to clarify, is that to China or is that to all the markets in which you sell EVs?
I mean, I don't think it's the case in the US. I don't think it's, I mean, obviously people are sensitive to cost, but not at this level. I don't think it's the case in Europe, because frankly, Zoe is selling very well and the Leaf is selling very well in Europe. I don't think it's the case in Japan. I think it's particularly going to be the case in China and India. That means in the emerging market, which are going to focus on emissions, you can't make it without very, very competitive price.
Hi, Carl Brower, Kelly Blue Book. You know, Mr. Ghosn, there's a lot of moving parts right now between the electrification that's becoming less expensive and more effective, and also the autonomous technology. And then finally, this kind of shared vehicle economy that a lot of people are talking about, ride sharing and using mobile technology to make cars more easily shared between people. You've spoken a lot about two of those. You've got a very aggressive autonomous plan, and you've certainly been aggressive on electric vehicles. What's Nissan's position on anything that relates to kind of the post-sale or the use of the vehicles and the networking between end users that could lead to more ride sharing, like Maven from GM and Ford's working on that? I'm just curious what Nissan's doing there.
We are obviously less advanced on this because, frankly, we consider that there are a lot of pros and cons for this. Obviously, shared cars compared to the situation today are going to increase because we're coming from a very, very limited part of the car park which is shared today. When you look at the total market or the total car park, this is really, we're not even talking about less than 1%. We're not taking even less than 1 per 1,000. Because I think, yes, there are some trends to share, but there are also some trends not to share. And the trend not to share is coming through connectivity and personalization of your mobile space. From the other side, you have a lot of companies developing application and making it easy to share cars. What's going to be the winner is not obvious for us. So, and usually when the strategic environment is not clear, we usually take a time to think it through instead of moving blindly behind it. It's not, for us, it's not clear. Well, obviously for some competitors it is, because they are moving already. But it's okay. That means, we moved boldly on electric car before everybody else, so we've seen something that other people didn't see. We are moving on autonomous and connected car because we see a lot of things and other people share with us or not. On the shared cars, we are a little bit, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I think we're a little bit skeptical about how much of a trend it's going to be. It's going to grow without any doubt. Is it going to be a substantial part of our industry? We still have a lot of doubt.
Did we have one over here?
When you introduced the Renault Kwid in Chennai last year, you said it was a pioneering project and you would love to see what the response would be and how you could take it globally, first to other emerging markets and then to developed markets. So what has the response been? Are you satisfied with it? How is the project progressing? And secondly, do we see an electric Renault Kwid as well, or what is the electric car for India?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, obviously, you know the answer to all these questions because you're familiar with the Indian market. The Kwid has been an instant success, much more than we thought. This is a 4,000 euro, $4,500 price car, and we had instantly about 100,000 orders. So it's huge. We can't produce these cars. So today we have a lot of people abandoning Kwid because they have a lot of months to wait, so they decided to abandon. So we're increasing capacity. We obviously hit something big with the Kwid. But this is part of a long strategy, establishing a new platform made by specialists from France and from Japan, based in Chennai, working with the Indian engineers, working with the Indian suppliers. Kwid is 98% localized in India, designed to cost from the beginning, designed to cost, a modern car. And frankly, it's struck a chord because, as you know, the Renault brand is practically not known in India, and the Nissan brand is also very little awareness about the brand. Even though we had 100,000 orders, and which is obviously very encouraging. So obviously we're going to supply this, and we're going to come with more cars on the same platform. So for the moment, it's one car, but you can expect the second, the third, the fourth with different design, different shapes. We're obviously we're going to have crossover, we're going to have sedans, we're going to have things like this because there is an appeal for India. And this is not only about India, this is about all emerging markets. So you know very well, if you make it big in India, you're going to make it big in many other emerging markets because we consider India as the benchmark in terms of competitiveness, particularly for affordable car. So I think the A platform is a success. I think the Kwid is a success. And this is going to be a huge development for the Alliance in the years to come. And I think we're probably the only car maker with this kind of platform today. Modern platform, capable of addressing this kind of needs with different shapes. The electric quid would be a logical consequence. When it will come, we have many other things to do before we come there, but it will be a logical consequence. Oh, that means you'll have, without any doubt, a Nissan car on the same platform. This is an alliance platform. This is not a Renault platform. It's an alliance platform.
We have one back here.
What are your concerns about non-traditional players like Google and Apple entering the automotive space?
Well, I don't think there is a concern. I think there is a lot of curiosity. That means there is a lot of curiosity about what they really want to do. We don't know. They don't say it themselves, which is fine. That means a good strategy to say, don't let people know exactly where you're aiming. We don't know. We're very curious. We think it's good for the industry because they are attracting a lot of attention on the new technology coming on the car market. And also it's good for us because it's going against the commoditization of our business. On the contrary, making our business much more exciting. So for the moment, there is a lot of curiosity about where this is going to end up. And I think it's a good challenge. Because at the end of the day, if there is big demand for transformation of the car into a kind of connected mobile space, and if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. So better put our act together as soon as possible and come with an offer, a competitor, before somebody else does it. So I think it's, and frankly, if any one of these two wanted to become a car maker, they can do it. I mean, when you look at their market capitalization compared to any car makers, it's not very difficult to say, okay, I'm going to acquire a car maker and make my transformation on an existing platform, network, etc. I don't think it's that. If not, they would have done it already. So curiosity, attention, challenge, but a healthy challenge, not a negative one. It's a healthy challenge.
We'll go to Dave Shepardson, and then Mr. Chappell, I think, had a question.
Two questions. One, do you see any further consolidation in the auto industry in the short term? And then secondly, you've talked a lot about having autonomous drive functionality by 2020, but do you have a specific target in mind when the driver will be completely out of the loop?
Yeah. Do I see any consolidation on the short term? No, unless somebody comes and say, I want to be acquired, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. But I don't see it on the short term. I think it's an ongoing trend. It's an ongoing trend. It's a going trend driven by technology, by scale, by competitiveness. It's going to continue. Am I seeing an acceleration on the short term? I don't think so. But I think it's going to stay with us for a while. The second question was? Yeah, well, this is driverless car. I mean, I know there is a lot of confusion between autonomous car and driverless car. What we have been talking about is autonomous cars. That means the driver is in the car, he's empowered. He decides whenever he wants to drive or not. Driverless cars will be a consequence or a byproduct of the development of this technology. We're not very excited about it. I mean, we frankly, it is not our priority in terms of investments. Our priority is really getting first into the autonomous car. That means giving the driver the possibility to drive or not to drive, and giving them the safety, everything going with it. Now we're paying attention on driverless cars also, because we know that some of the pieces of technology we're putting for autonomous car are going to help driverless cars. Except that driverless cars, in terms of regulatory, are going to be much more difficult. I mean, you can imagine that as long as you have a driver in the car, the question of responsibility are much more simple, okay? Because you have functionality on autonomous, we are responsible of the fact that the functionality we put in the car work, and then the driver is responsible about how he's using or not using this functionality. The responsibility are very clear. Now, whenever you don't have anybody into the car, then it becomes more fuzzy in terms of responsibility. And frankly, I think that the regulatory framework is going to be extremely complicated for driverless cars. Well, we had a small demonstration of that, because as you know very well, California authorities came at a certain point in time, I think it was the local state authority, saying, you know, you have to have a driver in the car. And then we have a second ruling 2-3 weeks later, more federal ruling, saying the computer or artificial intelligence can be considered as a driver. Okay? So you're seeing already two positions which are different. So you can imagine that the road for regulating cars without a driver, in our opinion, is going to be much more complicated than putting guidance and rules for autonomous cars where the driver is still in the car. So that's why we think we really need, even keeping an eye on this, but frankly we need to push more on autonomous, which in our opinion is more short-term, than on driverless car, which is going to require much more things to happen. And then let's not forget also that we're addressing the global market. So for us, it's not only important that regulatory be clear in the United States, but we want it to be clear in Europe, we want it to be clear in Japan, we want it to be clear in India, in Turkey, in Russia, in Brazil, etc. Frankly, I don't see cars without a driver today in a lot of emerging markets. I don't see it. I mean, road infrastructure, reliability of the information, reliability of the mapping. I mean, this would be extremely dangerous to launch that. Autonomous car with a driver inside, no problem.
Matt?
As we've seen with the Leaf and other plug-in hybrids, their residual values or resale value haven't kept up with conventional cars. With the Leaf, do you feel a responsibility, or are you looking at somehow doing a program to either offer incentives or somehow support those vehicles so that those people stay in electric vehicles?
Well, I can tell you that the resale value will follow it very, very cautiously, and this is something which is a very important part of selling electric car. We have with us Jose Munoz, who is the head of the North American operation, who's following personally not only the sales of electric car, but also the resale value. I'm going to let him answer this question.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosn. So effectively, we are managing the residuals, and now I think we are really very good, almost experts on this field. And there are several programs. Some of them they are already in the market. Others we're working on them to be set up. Some are simple, so it is about spreading the cars to the different states in the United States. So sometimes not the states where we're selling the new cars are those that are demanding the used cars. Normally it's the contrary, because those states where we're selling the most have higher support from the state. So that is number one, the dispersion. The other one, we have done some programs to try to motivate the right moment where the car is going to become used. So you can extend a little bit, maybe X months, or make it shorter so that you are having a kind of a car flow of used vehicles. There are other programs coming up which we believe very, very interesting, where we eventually can see, and I don't want to provide a lot of details, but we can see even organizations, states that are interested in fomenting used electric vehicle, which is very good because there are more people that have realized that in order to get to the CO2 emission regulation, we need to increase significantly the sales. So by supporting the sales of the used Leaf, they are supporting indirectly as well the sales of new Leaf. So the answer is yes, we're working actively. Still, it's an issue where we see opportunities, and we are kind of, I would say, almost pioneers in this field.
Next question. Christy, right back there.
Hi, I'm Otsuka of Kyodo News. I have a question on autonomous driving. I think you have a project to start autonomous driving limited on freeways this year from Japan. Could you give me further details, like you can use that technology on the limited line freeway, or you can expand it all over Japan, and also which model are you aiming at using this technology?
Yeah,
thank you.
No, you're totally right. I mean, we said it from the beginning, autonomous drive is going to come in waves. We call it AD1, AD2, AD3. When we talk about autonomous drive, ultimate objective is city driving. Non-limited city driving. That's the ultimate objective. But this one is more for 2020. But in the meantime, we're going to start with partial autonomous driving. first car coming in Japan. We have Philippe Klein with us, who is the Chief Planning Officer of Nissan. Is going to tell you, when and what car.
It's going to be a new car within this fiscal year. I will let a bit of more surprise in the Japanese market at a later stage.
And it's going to be one lane.
It's going to be one lane highway, and this is going to be spread over the lineup gradually after into mass-produced cars. We want this technology to be affordable, and so that we can have a large spread. And then we're going to go after, in 2018, to a technology capable to master multi-lanes. And the ultimate goal is mastering the city driving with the crossroad and all these kind of things. This is in the horizon of 2020.
Okay, Mr. Lassa, and then we'll go over here.
Thank you. This morning you said that you were not necessarily interested in expanding or adding alliances or agreements with other car companies. But at FCA, Mr. Marchione is, and wonder, first of all, whether he has approached you regarding the next Dodge Dart and Chrysler 200, and B, what you think of the idea of maybe more platform sharing or more production sharing on those segments as they give way to CUVs.
I cannot, as we are very open about collaboration, I cannot say that I'm aware about all request studies which is being made with many car makers who want to share platforms. So to my knowledge, no. So to answer your question, but it doesn't mean that in our deep organization, you don't have somebody talking to another person from another organization saying, how about we do this car together, okay? But there is no decision, there is no prospect, etc. This being said, we have built a platform of collaboration for the whole industry. So if something makes sense, we'll do it. It's not limited to one car makers. It's open to many car makers as long as it's a win-win. Obviously, we prefer long-term relationship. Like the one we have with Daimler, or like the one we have with Mitsubishi, where it's not only about one car, one product, it's not casual, it's not specific, it's more, let's sit down and see what we can do together and for the benefit of both companies, okay? So it's very unlikely that we're going to do a deal around one single car, one single platform, or one single market. Very unlikely. We prefer more broader arrangement where companies are separate, but at the same time there is a good win-win situation.
Far side over here.
My name is Sohaib Shasha from ArabGT.com from Dubai. One more question about the EV cars. What's your expectation in terms of launching the EV cars on the Middle East? And do you think the extreme weather conditions may affect the car performance?
I don't think we have a plan to launch electric cars in the Middle East. We have been approached by some states in the Middle East at a certain point in time, but we ended up both agreeing that it's not a good idea. I don't think it's a technological issue, even though, as you know, batteries are very sensitive to extreme temperature. Whenever it's very, very, very cold and very, very, very hot, the battery loses of its efficiency. That means that the range can be divided by 2 under extreme conditions, which limit the advantage of electric cars. But being said today, I don't think we have any serious project to launch electric cars in the Gulf country, even though there have been some states talk to us about tentatives to create cities where the environment would be particularly clean, no emissions, but it didn't end up being realized.
Is there one more over here, Josh?
Sebastian Blanco with Autoblog Green. I'd like to return to the idea of the lower cost EV, and where do you see it's best to take some of the costs out? Do you think that's in things like range or the infotainment system or the comfort? And how do you know where to stop? So is a short range EV, but that's a little bit luxurious, better than a longer range EV that doesn't have, that's very basic?
Oh, we don't even have to guess. We look at the market, and where the market is going is cheaper batteries. Cheaper batteries, lower range, more refueling, and that's what we're seeing in China. So the only way you're gonna really jumpstart the sales is gonna go to really accept a lower level of performance on electric cars in markets which are ready to accept it. And I think the best test is gonna be in the Chinese market.
We have time for 2 more questions. Back row.
Andrew English, Daily Telegraph. Mr. Ghosn, you gave quite an important speech at Los Angeles after the Lehman Brothers crash, where you advised your competitors to hold on to the cash. I remember listening to it. It was a damn good speech and very prescient, as it turned out. The world economy is not without its headwinds at the moment, and I'm sure we are all aware of them. I wonder what advice you'd offer your competitors today.
I think after the Lehman shock, hanging to cash was such an obvious thing that it was, I don't think I was giving any competitive advantage to anybody by saying, hold on to your cash, we're going to go for a... frankly, I don't think that today we are in a situation by any way comparable. You know, for the car industry, 2015 has been a rather good year. I think 2016, from everything we're seeing, looks like it's going to be another good year. Tough year, but good year. A lot of volatility. Some markets are going to be very difficult. Competition is tough. United States, China, Europe. But overall, I think most of the car makers are going to make a good profit. Some of them obviously are going to be gaining market share. Balance sheets are going to be stronger. I think practically all the car makers today are in a cash situation except one. So I mean, the industry is going well. I mean, we are in tough conditions, but the industry is going well. So I don't think there is a one priority that needs to be filled or, you know, in order to be successful, as it was the case when we had the crisis of Lehman Brothers.
Last question. Kristen?
Back a few years ago, there were a lot of targets and goals talked about for the Infiniti brand, namely you wanted to achieve Tier 1 luxury, you wanted to hit 500,000 sales by 2020. I'm just wondering, are those goals still in place? Do you still have a desire to have Infiniti become a Tier 1 luxury brand?
Yeah,
if you could just talk about that.
we have, and I'm going to let Roland Kruger, who is the head of the Infiniti entity inside the company, to talk about it. We have the same goal. I think you know, we look at all the opportunities we have, and this is a major one. I think our contribution to the premium market is still very small. Not only small in volume, in revenue, but also in contribution to profit. And we think we can do a much better job, and I think we have the technology and we have the know-how in order to develop this. On top of this, we are collaborating with Daimler, and we are exchanging a lot with Daimler, and I think there is, without mimicking anything or copying anything, because this is a major German brand, we are a Japanese brand, so the feel is not the same, the design not the same, the expectations are not the same. We can do a much better job with Infiniti, and in fact, the result of this year are already very encouraging. Roland, maybe you want to... Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. So as outlined in the year 2015, we've crossed for the first time 200,000 vehicles. That's considerable, still small in the premium segment, but it's a big success for Infiniti. Actually, it was 215,000, and the main market was here, the US. The US is still, for Infiniti, the market where Infiniti was born. It's kind of the home market, and we continue to grow over proportionally double digit. So this is a very good sign. Second point, we will have a new car, which is a C segment car, which is a QX30, especially here in the US. That will enlarge the customer base for us in 2016 and onwards. And we are also back to the roots with a coupe, which gives access to a very loyal customer base for us, where we have the Q60 being launched also this year. So you see that the brand is growing, and the goal obviously is to become one of the top tier players in the segment. Now, coming back to some of the forecasts, I would rather like to talk about what we deliver and how the growth figures develop over the next few years. with the new vehicles that we have in store.
But I think it would be fair to say that we are investing for this. That means we're not trying to optimize around 200,000. We are investing, adding platforms, collaborating with Daimler in order to reach. But what is very important is the sustainability. That means that one step ahead followed by another step ahead and not one step aside.
Okay, that concludes our Q&A. Mr. Ghosn, thank you.
Thank you.